In this tutorial, we're going to create our own channel art. The benefit of this new YouTube One layout is that it looks good on all the different devices out there and on all browsers. You're going to need the channel art specifications, which you can download in the link below. And you're also going to need a program, graphics editing program. I'm going to be using GIMP, which is free, but you can also follow along with Photoshop. So we start out by opening up the images we're going to be using. We start out with the channel specifications. You can right click and select open in GIMP. And yeah, let's just zoom this a little bit. Still a bit too big. Let's go with 40%. Alright, what these colored lines mean is that everything inside of the red right here will be what shows up on desktops in the smallest view and on mobile phones. Everything inside of the pink right here will be what shows up on tablets, and everything inside of the green will be what shows up on the widest screens on desktops, and everything inside of the yellow will be what shows up on televisions when people are on YouTube TV. So let's open up the images we're going to be using. I'm going to start out by opening up this TV set. Right click open with GIMP. See, my design idea isn't all that great, but you can follow along. I'll probably end up changing my design eventually. So we're going to open up this logo I'm going to be using. And we need to bring these images over to our channel specification, because now all these are in their own separate projects. And I just want to be using the logo itself with a transparent background. I'm going to select new layer from visible. Now we have just this part. I'm going to select everything with Control A and then Control C to copy. And I go back over into my channel art project and select Control V to paste. That will bring it as a floating layer right here, which I turn into a real layer. And now we can move this thing around with the move tool. Shortcut is M. You can move it around by itself. And we can scale it with the transform tool, Shift T. And as you see, as I start dragging this right now, it doesn't constrain the proportions. So it might mess up the image. So we're going to go ahead and the lock right here. Now as I scale it, it will constrain the proportions. So let's go ahead and make it as big as we want. And I want it to fit inside of the red. Hit enter to apply the scale. Click M for the move tool again if you need to move it around. Let's move this template specification to the top. You'll see why later. And we're going to have to turn down the opacity so we can see through it. So remember, you want to have the template specification on top, especially if you have a big image that is going to cover the whole screen, the whole TV area. Now what you might notice is when you try to move this, the layer you have selected, it might actually move the layer on top. because it might start out like this, and you try to move it, and it moves the top layer and not the layer you have selected. So what you want to do is click move the active layer right here, and then you can move the layer you have selected. This is a setting in the move tool. Another thing I want to do is I want to move this text up some, so I go to the selection tool and select it and click Control X to cut, Control V again to paste, and now this text is on its own little layer. Turn it into a real layer. Now I can move it independently. Let's move that layer down so it's below the channel specifications, and let's just position it right where we want it. Let's move the logo a little bit again. I noticed the top was above the red area. Right there. And now I want to get rid of this extra text that's in the logo. So I go to the layer that it's on, use the selection tool, select it, click Control X to cut. Now that's gone. Let's get rid of our selection here by going select none. Now we have just the logo and a piece of text that we want. So now we can go ahead and move this TV set over by hitting Control A, Control C to copy, and then Control V to paste into our other project. It's going to take a while because it's a pretty big image. Now this shows up as a floating layer again. We need to turn that into a real layer. And as you'll see, it covers the whole image, and this is why it's good to have the specification layer on top. Now we can close these other projects so they don't use up so much memory. Let's do the same with our logo in the background there. Let's close that project. And let's move this television layer down all the way to the bottom, below the channel specifications. Now we can see our guides again, and below the logo and the text, all the way to the bottom. And we're going to have to scale it a bit so it fits inside of the red, so Shift T to transform. I mean, we want it to fit inside of the TV specifications. So I'm going to have to do some scaling here. Let's try it that big first. Just hit enter to apply. And it's going to take a while with this big image. And I'm probably going to have to do a bit of scaling and moving to get it to fit just inside of the TV. So just follow along. So remember M to go back to the move tool, and Shift T to go to the transform tool, or you can just click the little icons. I'm going to M to move it a little bit. I'm going to speed up this a little bit so you don't have to watch me do all the back and forth scaling and moving. So I'm going to cheat a little bit here by making it a bit wider than it actually is to get it to fit right inside of the yellow. And there's still some space on the right there. Let's move it over. Let's see. That looks almost right. Just a little bit more scaling on the left. Let's get it just up against the yellow. And that's good. Now you can see what we have so far. And our design is almost finished. But let's just reposition this a little bit. Now I could go all out and change the perspective of the logo to make it look like it's actually on the TV, but I'm just going to do a little bit of opacity change to make it blend in with the screen. Let's go with 50 something, maybe 60 something. Let's do the same with the text. Now it blends in a little bit more with the TV. And now our design is almost finished. One final thing we're gonna have to need to do is to crop the whole thing to get rid of this area outside, to make it, we want the final image to be just as big as the TV specifications. So we select the area that we want and get it right up against yellow. Get our crop right up against yellow guidelines. And I'm going to be really accurate here and zoom in and do it. Hold down spacebar to move the view. Let go spacebar and then get these right up against the edge. That looks good. Let's check out the top. Holding spacebar again to move around. Top looks good. Let's check out the bottom of our crop. And that looks good. I'm going to go back to 40%, and to apply the crop we just click inside of it. And now our final image is just as big as the TV specifications. And here's the final image. Now all that remains to do is to go and save it as an image file. So we go and select JPEG is what I'm going to go with. That will add .jpg at the end of the name there. And I'm going to name this just tube art, tube channel art, without the spec. Then save that. Export. And click save again. And that saves this as an image. And that's it.